I love vampire movies. I have always loved vampire movies. Of all the classic horror creatures out there, werewolves, zombies, accountants, I have loved vampires the most. Out of all the other creatures that have made movies famous and timeless, vampires are the ones that have the most nobility about them. Werewolves and zombies and mummies just tend to walk around and tear their victims apart without any real rhyme or reason to them just because they're there. Vampires are much more different. They are much more seductive in the way and much more selective about their victims. And the way that they lure their victims into their eventual demise is much more compelling than simply, running into a room and just ripping people apart. As such, I was extremely intrigued when I saw the case for a movie called Let the Right One In. Let the Right One In is a Russian-made film, and this film is probably the best vampire film I have ever seen in my life. Basic plot synopsis. The story of this film focuses around a young boy named Oscar. Oscar is kind of at that pre-teen, just hitting high school kind of area in his life, and he lives alone with his mother in an apartment complex. Oscar is a very awkward child in the sense that he is very quiet, keeps to himself, he has no friends, and is brutally picked on by a crew of bullies at his school. Then, one day, Ellie moves in next door. Ellie is a small, innocent-looking girl who is also a vampire. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. Thanks a lot, Tony Jerk Eyes. You just ruined the entire point of the movie for me. But I didn't! Here's why. The movie makes no attempt to hide what Ellie's character is. Generally, in American filmmaking, what you'll see is there'll be hint here and hint there, and then something happens here, and then all of a sudden, BAM! Right in your face, there's the big twist, and all of a sudden, both the audience and the characters within the film are surprised. Everybody finds out at the exact same time. And it's this huge big thing, and that's the driving force behind the storyline. Not the case in this film. In this one, Ellie is introduced rather blatantly as a vampire. So what ends up happening is that the audience is just said, look, here's the information, now roll with it. And you have to just accept that that's who her character is. And it ends up becoming something that you don't get so lost on the idea of what she is as much as who she is, which is something that is not generally found in creature films. There are some creature films out there that, kind of explore the whole thing about, well, there's still a person underneath and things like that. I mean, The Fly was a really good example of that with Jeff Goldblum. However, they don't tackle the idea of simply accepting what this person is and making that just part of their personality. It's something that you rarely ever see touched, and in this movie, it's right there thrown in your face. So getting back to the plot, alongside the story of Oscar and Ellie becoming good friends and becoming true companions with one another, there is this other side which, in this small town in which these characters live in, a series of murders have taken place, rather brutal murders. If you're smart enough, you can put two and two together and realize that Ellie's appearance within the town and the murders that are happening are no small coincidence. What you essentially get is what is on one hand a horror creature movie, and on the other hand is a coming-of-age, learning about life narrative. And it's extremely compelling. I haven't seen anything ever done like this before. I mean, I'm sure that it's out there, and probably in much more obscure circles. Any of you out there, any of my subscribers, if you can give me another example of something like this, I would love to see it. But, I mean, honestly, how often do characters with rather profound differences end up not being defined by that and end up being defined by more of their personality and their interactions with the characters? It's definitely one of the greatest examples of true realistic character development that I have ever witnessed in filmmaking, and I enjoyed it a great deal. As far as the rest of the elements of the movie go, the cinematography is excellent, absolutely excellent. There's a very, very profound use of lighting. If you've taken the time to go out and see Hard Candy, you will know that lighting can play a very important role in the shaping of a scene and the shaping of emotion within the context of that scene. A little less profound than Hard Candy, but it's definitely there, and there are definitely changes in lighting and subtlety that really create this true sense of either, true comfort or a disturbing, unsettling emotion. As far as things like sound and editing and things like that, top-notch, absolutely top-notch. And whereas some people may get turned off by foreign filmmaking due to certain film techniques, how long you can hold a tracking shot or how long a scene can last and things like that, this movie is actually very more closely related to American pacing that I've seen, especially coming from a Russian film. This movie keeps you moving along, and you care so much about the characters. You really, really feel for Oscar, and I think it's because we've all been there. I mean, haven't we? Okay, well, I've been there. All I wanted to do was just play kickball. Why wouldn't you let me play, Jimmy? What I lack in skill, I make up for in spirit. But we've all faced those times of adversity, and we've all gone through those kind of situations of not finding acceptance in places where you should very easily find acceptance. In an entire city, you can end up being completely alone. And Oscar's character embodies all those feelings that people get from that. Ellie then provides that door, that kind of exit from all of that. And as somebody watching it, it's actually comforting when she comes around, even though you know that she is a killer vampire. And that is what's great about this movie, is the contrast of emotions that you get as a result of knowing what this person is and what they are capable of, but knowing who they are deeper down and knowing what their true intentions are and why they do the things that they do. And it is a very compelling way of filmmaking, and I can't recommend it heartily enough. And I will also like to add one thing without spoiling anything. This movie has the single best effect involving a swimming pool I have ever witnessed in filmmaking. It is on my non-existent top 10 list of the greatest effects ever performed in a film. If that's the only part of the movie you see, awesome, because you will know what I'm talking about, and I promise you that imagery will stick in your mind for the rest of your life, and you will compare every movie that you ever see from this point on involving this subject matter to that one scene. So, if it isn't fairly obvious by now, I highly recommend this movie. And this is also the first request review that I have done. This came as a result of several people asking me about this movie and about my opinion on it. And then, what do you know, I have subscribers asking about it. So, you know who you are, and so this one's for you. Rant time! PETA. Now, I'm probably beating a dead horse here. God, I probably shouldn't phrase it that way. But I'm really infuriated by the meddlings of PETA in everyday life for the most trivial of reasons. Why do they do it? Now, I'm going to start off by saying I will defend some things that PETA stands for, okay? I am definitely for proper animal treatment, things like that. I'm not for animal torture or things like that. I'm not about inhumane practices and things like that. But for God's sakes, do not beat me up with a bunch of wiffle ball bats when I go to take a bite of a chicken sandwich. Anyway, the big beef that I have with PETA right now. Again, why can't I stop? For those of you who keep in any sort of political circles, you would know of a recent fly atrocity that occurred during an interview with President Obama. Now, we're talking about a fly here, okay? There are how many of these stupid things? And they are all over the place, and they live for like 72 to 76 hours. I mean, they have 3 days to live. Not really, you know, affecting the world climate, right? Well, of course, Obama made the mistake of killing a fly on national television and being very proud of it. PETA's response to this, if you haven't heard this, oh my God, prepare yourself. PETA's response was, "We wish that Mr. Obama could have picked a more humane way of dealing with the fly." They asked him, I can't even say it, when discussing things about being a civil liberties leader, that he would also take into consideration the smallest, most curious, most sympathetic of all creatures on this earth. Are you freaking kidding me? Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about a fly, an insect, a parasite, okay? Something with no sense of emotion or morality. It's a bug, a frickin' bug. I mean, are we gonna start burning down Raid factories? I mean, I have a can of Raid in my very house. Am I gonna have PETA knocking on my door telling me save the insects, give fleas a chance? It's ridiculous. I want you to take note of something here. It is all well and good to stand up for defending certain things, but when common sense outweighs the most trivial of incidences, don't let PETA in, leave them out, because let's face it, PETA is just going to be better left as one of those weird sandwich things you get at those stupid health food shops.